In this video, we are going to talk about the art direction of K-pop and Korean fashion. This video centers around the importance of references and seeing new things because all of our feeds look alike to help your creative direction, your strategy, your artistry find its own voice. We're going to talk about concepts for your brand's products and how the ultra-competitive Korean market uses these to stand out. We're going to look at the art direction of groups and how photos of people like K-pop stars can make your creative direction stand out. We're going to take some tips from some of the most refined industry in the world with K-beauty, look at some of the top creatives in Korea and see how their work is kind of translating into the internet, talk about how to elevate your brand, and look at the future of technology and ideas in our global world. I'm super excited for this video.
You know how long I've been waiting for this?
You're going to see a ton of my mood boards and my references because this is a market I look to a lot. I'll share a Cosmos board linked with all of this down below. Let's lock in. So we are going to start with the world of Korean fashion with a brand called Post-Archive Faction. There are a number of Korean brands that have crossed over into full Western pop culture. Gentle Monster, Thug Club. But the most interesting to me, and the one I feel like we can all learn the most from, is PAF. For any of you that watched my Virgil Abloh video a few weeks ago, one of their interesting collabs and one of the first times they got on my radar was when they collaborated with Off-White. So a few years ago, they released this collection. Really stand out. Art direction, obviously look to the clothes. This image itself is insane. But also they had some sculptural objects included as well. Backpack goes crazy, but they reinterpreted Victorinox, which is a Swiss company that makes Swiss Army knives, into a handful of objects. You'll see they have this really interesting and robust Swiss Army knife. They also have this primitive tool. But to me, it was a really interesting aesthetic world I was curious to learn more about. But when you actually dive into the brand, they have a concept behind their brand. This is a really interesting thing I think a lot of us can learn from. Every release they have, every garment that they put out, they make a left version of, a center version of, and a right version of. The right version is very conservative, it's very wearable, it looks almost like a typical garment. The center version leans more experimental, and the left version goes completely into its own interpretation. And as you see, we have tons of streetwear brands, everyone's starting their own collection, doing their own design. This isn't a bad thing, but what it does mean is the elevation of pattern, of form, of concept is going to become a differentiator when everyone can not only just do the same screen printed tees, but everyone's getting good at entry-level clothing, right? Everyone's able to do solid denim, everyone's able to do decent outerwear. People are realizing that has become extremely accessible. The patterns are easier than ever, designers are more equipped than ever. And so elevation is going to look a lot into pattern form, materials, and then also a concept or an idea to the brand. And this one in particular really resonates because they make extremely interesting garments. This brand has gone on to collaborate with people like On Running and continue to release collection after collection of wearable and experimental side-by-side garments. And so it's worth thinking with your own brand, can you do a concept like this? Can you have two sides of the same coin, or the dark and light, heaven and hell version? What is that vision you can have in your own head that brings a concept worth looking at every time? Because what this does is this makes you, when you hear there's a new release or a new collection, want to see what they've done on those different ends of the spectrum. It really helps tie a reason into the brand that gets people excited. But moving on over into the world of K-pop. Now, for many of you who've watched my other videos, we've talked about Stussy or Loewe, but you probably did not anticipate that K-pop was next. But this is actually one that I love personally to look at. This is one of my Cosmos boards. And I love it because they take the essence of capturing a group so seriously, the art direction of basically multiple people. So if you are doing a shot or you're working on a project with multiple models, and you're looking for some of the best references that you can pull from, K-pop is it. And look at this. This image here is incredible. The lengths that are gone to for the production and for the standout in as competitive of a pop culture environment as what happens in Korean music and pop culture is this breeding ground for just incredible collaboration. And even the little things that you would expect have this deeper essence to them that's really compelling and often borders on the metaphysical. You'll see that recurring trope of someone kind of rising above, these kind of collective moments. And even the basics of portraiture, capturing a single person and their essence, there's just so much amazing work there. And the importance of this, at least for me, is I know whenever I show up to a creative direction session or a creative strategy session, if I come with the same stuff as everyone else, as someone with a prolific personality on the internet, that's gonna get judged. I have an even higher standard every time I do creative now as I've begun to amass a following that I am obsessed not just with my own personal drive to make interesting things, but also knowing that I have to come and compete at the highest level. So I am always looking for new references references, online and offline, buying books, buying zines, getting into different cultures. And since I work a lot on global projects, I've spent a lot of time in Asia, I'm always looking to what's happening over there and happening to my friends across the world. And so if you are pulling references or beginning to look for these things, I would encourage you to go outside of where everyone else is looking. They're seeing the same Pinterest things. They're all in the same arena mood boards, the ones that are so popular. You are able to find some subcultures and lean into it and go a level deeper. And we'll talk a bit how later in the video. You're going to find that that mix of things that you're taking inspiration from really leads you to more interesting work. So why K-beauty, you might ask? Why would someone look to that? What does it mean to be advanced in an industry in this world? So originally, I looked a lot at Korea because of their influencer mailers. Their influencer culture is one of the most developed. And so when you want to look at where influencer culture is going, a lot of people try to reference China, but there's a huge cultural differences between China and how they consume content, and how they buy products, and where they view influence, and how the Western world does. And actually, Korea is way more aligned with, almost step for step, how things have progressed in influence culture, beauty culture, pop culture in the United States. The emergence of fandoms, the aesthetics that we see, the product style. And so I started looking at this for influencer mailers. So for those of you that know the concept behind this, brands send out thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of mailers all the time. In my typical set, you see behind my YouTube videos, I have mailers I've either gotten or with brands that I've worked on. They're actually behind me. It's a huge, compelling part of the marketing process. But to make those successful, you have basically what's called post rate. You send out X amount of mailers, how many people actually post them? And not just post a story, post a feed. And if you want to increase your post rate, you need a mailer that is worth showcasing, where whoever opens it goes, I can have a video that gets views because of how cool this is. And Korea is the inspiration for this. So this company, He's, we're on their Behance now, has done Korean beauty mailers that are just incredible. Like this blush phone. The first one I saw was these Maybelline sticks of dynamite. Look at this clear case they had here. They had cardboard mini purses at one point, which is one I've been trying to get somebody to replicate in the West because it's affordable. They have like full computers. They're like kind of made of cardboard, obviously more intricate opening items here. But this is, if you are taking inspiration for how to do an amazing mailer in the US, Korea's already done it. They've already hit the pinnacle of it. So being able to pull from things they've done and apply your own brand kit to it is an amazing way to look at it. And He's is at the top of their game. Best of the best in terms of creating these for these brands, and is an awesome person to look at. That's Heaz. And on that note, shifting over closer into the actual influencer culture, MLMA is an artist from there. Me Love Me a Lot, that's what it's short for, who's at the tip top of the personality, visual, aesthetic influencer game. Cutting these aesthetic reels, styling, creating art, drawing on top of Porsches, triggering some of the fans in the meantime, creating really interesting looks at your aesthetic self. If you're an influencer that makes this type of content, she is absolutely on top. And this is important too if you are looking for, especially there's a lot of influencers out there now in fashion, etc. They're trying to make standout content in a world that's obsessed with editing and transitions. And it really comes down to creative and creative direction, much like anything else. And these top influencers, especially those that kind of in Korea, are operating on a level with which US influencers are barely beginning to compete with. So this is one of the examples I always go to when I'm talking to someone about how to elevate the visuals of their brand or how to look at themselves and become iconography to show their work and have it travel on the global internet. She's big, obviously far beyond Korea. This is an example that comes up. And this was the first time that I caught on to this was, I mean, this may be a 3D viz, it might be AI, but she basically become a robotic version of herself for a series of posts. And that's where I began to look at these like enhanced identities that come from the modern visual style of today and how you can begin to build that world around yourself with editing online, I think is a fascinating and relatively untapped market, that halfway between a real person and little Michaela. And speaking of references, this week's video is brought to you by Motion. This is the first time I'm talking about Motion. This is a product I use every day in the work I do in cosmetics. It is an analytics tool, creative strategy tool for working on meta ads. And it is excellent at it. We're gonna walk through a bit of how it works so you know. So what Motion does is it syncs to your ad account in Meta, whether you're running 10 ads or thousands of ads, and brings in the data and analytics. And then they have AI tools that actually identify different parts of the process to group your ads together. So for instance, it will automatically call out the visual format for your ads, like a feature benefit point out or an offer first banner. It It will note the messaging angle, like a Black Friday sale. It will break down the hook tactic, basically applying auto tags to every piece of creative you have. But then what this also allows you to do is then sort and see your return on ad spend, A by ad. So you can go look at what your click-through rate is by ad, ROAS by ad, and compare them in charts like we're looking at here with whatever metrics, but then also look at that by the creative angle, the visual angle, the hook rate, the actual creative things that make ads move. And so when you begin running more and more ads, so as many of you know, if you're a company that's scaling into high 7, into 8, into 9 figures, you are running an absolute boat ton of ads. The work that I do related to this is I am briefing in for new campaigns and new ads every month, tons of variants, existing winners where we're going and taking new styles, we're applying them to new product launches, and new campaigns, UGC, statics. You just need lots of new, fresh creative, but you can actually go and see what are our recurring winners, what are the hook styles, what are the visual angles, compare them, and then make an actual strategy to brief for creative assets. But it doesn't stop there. One of the other interesting tools is their inspiration section. You can go look at what other brands are running for their ads and get breakdowns of those as well. What are the landing pages they're using and what traffic is going to them? What's the breakdown of video to image to carousel in terms of what they're running? What's the newest creative? And then they have actually tools to summarize and analyze this now. So I used to have to do a lot of this manually. You would go and you try to figure out what are they doing? What are the new angles? I'm going to create my summary. But now I can go spot gaps and opportunities. Tell me what this brand is testing, what's new and what's getting spent. Give me new hook ideas based on. Actually get these recaps to make that work quicker that you can go through and make a strategy based on. But they have a new AI pulse report based on how creative strategists are using modern tools like this to do better with ads. You can grab for free at the link below. And I'm doing a webinar with Motion coming up in December where we're going through a lot of the creative strategy trends that are happening right now inside paid media. There's gonna be a link below where you can join that. Thank you so much to Motion for sponsoring this video. Moving over into K-pop once more. People often ask, how do you find small accounts? How do you find people to follow? So here I am on Instagram where I found a production designer and an art director in K-pop, right? Because the other thing I look at for visuals for campaigns is I'm looking at music videos. The music videos had a renaissance with TikTok. There's quick ones and long ones, but K-pop still takes the ultra high production seriously. Things where you can learn from shot types and aesthetic looks for a campaign. And K-pop music videos are taking this super seriously. And so I found an art direction and production designer in there. Now she has 10,000 followers, is posting a lot of clips from these, carousels from these. Again, they don't have any views or anything, but I get to see the shot types, see some of the environments that they're creating, see how they're lighting things. But if you click this little plus sign at the top of the screen, this is the most underused Instagram function ever. You know what it gives me? 10 more Korean K-pop production designers. And you can click through those accounts. And that's how I discovered people like Moon Lee, who has, again, same amazing breakdown. You're trying to create shot lists. You're trying to look at what concepts can look like. These people that are working on these sets every day, like look at these transitions that are inside some of these videos. They're incredible. And being able to find and go through those is an excellent source of inspiration. Whenever I find any subculture or niche, and obviously K-pop is one that I go back to a lot, but there are plenty. We'll deep dive on some others in the future. Explore using those functions. But shifting over into brands in the highest level, when people think of Korean fashion, they think most often of Gentle Monster, probably the most known brand, huge installations, crazy campaigns. But they have a brand also run by basically a Gentle Monster affiliate called Tamburins. It's a fragrance brand. They're a really interesting one to look at for a core reason I think you could take a lot away from. A, their art direction is incredible. You can see them running the Gentle Monster Playbook, the form factors of these fragrances. This foot is insane. But here we go when we come to the chain. One of the things that they are most known for is basically the object and usability nature of their products. Anyone who is designing, especially a competitive category like fragrance today, sunscreen, cosmetics, whatever it is, could learn a lot from. They're constantly elevating their objects. So a good call out there is one of their more popular products is this car diffuser for fragrances, right? But look at the form factor on this and the elegance of it. And then the ability for them to leverage culture to promote that becomes a lot easier when it's a sculptural object. And how you stand out in those crowded niches is with things like that. Same thing with this lip balm, right? Every object becomes an object of desire. But then they multiply that by culture. So this is with Jennie from Blackpink when they were debuting one of the fragrances. And at the end, when she unveils that egg-like design, and you kind of see the connections between the production that happens and then what's actually being sold. They're combining that power of celebrity and culture with these objects of desire that people want to line up and get because of their look. I think what a lot of people confuse is they want that celebrity endorsement, but their project isn't a sculptural object of desire. And then also thinking that it has to be at this level. You have to have Jennie from Blackpink to have that level of attention. And that's not what the case is. The case in this world is there are tons of micro-influencers, celebrities, actors, musicians who have a smaller amount of that culture, that as long as you have an object of desire for that culture and you're partnering with them, you can do that on your level. And I would highly recommend scrolling through the Tambourins page to get some inspiration there. But you will see their products have endless accessory options. One of their more famous ones was this chain hand, which is just a high-end hand cream, but with the chain attached to the product. That then had this innately social media friendly and user-friendly addition to something that's carried every day. And we've now seen them take to another level and really elevate with the products on their website today, like this chain wear we see here, where literally you're having your perfume bottle attached to these really intricate, really great looking chains that become an accessory and a moment inside their own right. And that's what I would encourage everyone to think about in the categories you're working in. And especially, also if you're in fashion, crossing that over to the other side, is how do you create these things that become a signature in their own right? How do you complement the object that you're doing with something that works in someone's outfit, that makes them want to wear it, that makes them want to show it off? And Tambourins has done an excellent job with that. And I feel it's rarely been circulated in the West. And so to end this off, I'm going to talk about one of the best artists and creative directors that I found coming out of this Korean culture, and we can learn from them. I'm not gonna try and butcher this name, but let's take a look at the art and creations here. And we are in this era, we're in this really interesting time where our use of tools, the ability to bring any idea to life, the technology that we have at our fingertips, the ability to learn, the ability for creatives to collaborate, the accessibility we have to spaces is just at an all-time high. And I feel like the work is interesting. More and more people make good work, but less and less people make outstanding work, even though we're in an era where that is inherently more possible than ever. This is something I think about a lot for myself, where I feel like I make a lot of standard work. But what does it really mean to break out of that shell? That's something I'm really looking at as I go into next year. And this artist is doing it, right? At the highest level with the best stuff, using every piece of technology and tool that's available, creating on a level that if you're not exposed to this type of work, you have no idea that this kind of stuff even exists. And it's doing it with inherent statements behind what's happening inside the products. It's saying stuff with deeper messages. It's creating visuals that are ultra compelling, that stand out across anything that you see on the internet. And I would take inspiration from stuff like this as to what the ceiling is of, if you're a creative now, what you could begin looking like, have your work be in 5 years and 7 years, seeing that there is really no limit to the levels of what we can do today. And then going down the rabbit hole into their brand, another scent brand with just like an incredible, unique visual look and identity, to just show you that even in these extremely crowded markets, there are people with kind of creative vision who are still finding extremely interesting ways and leveraging the fact that production and new technology and molding and all these things are easier, more affordable and accessible than ever, to create stuff that is just amazing. And so this is CGS_lab. I will put a ton of stuff from all these on that Cosmos board and link the Cosmos in the bottom here so you have an easy time finding all these references as well. And to end off, I know obviously one of the big access points for a lot of people into Korean culture was the popularity of K-pop Demon Hunters on Netflix. And to give an example, people are going deep into that, and this idea of going down the rabbit hole into this, if you were interested in that or inspired by that, it's easy enough to find the art director for them on here and see their inspiration, their process, what they're into, what references they use. And then a couple clicks later than that, you can actually find the production designer who did the Netflix animation. We have so much access today to see those things. And I would just highly encourage you to look at stuff outside of the normal day-to-day, outside of what you normally scroll. Find that one interesting hook and go down the rabbit hole and begin to explore new worlds, because everything you consume forms what you create. And I think the more interesting and wide-ranging that is, the more excited you're going to be and the more interesting work you're going to do. I will link the boards below. All the motion stuff that I mentioned will be there as well. If you liked this, I have enough brands to do another one of these. I haven't even touched Thug Club. We haven't even gone into any of the food culture that's happening. This is the tip of the iceberg. I can definitely do the Korean aesthetics part 2. So let me know if you want that, or we can just keep it rolling. But I appreciate y'all so much for watching. Let's go.